Hey kids, welcome back to Uncle Fezzi's Mad Lab. What's Uncle Fezzi into now? Well, long story short, I decided I wanted to write a book. You know, of all the other things I have done, why not write a book too, right? Well, when Uncle Fezzi wrote a book, he decided to write 5. 430,000 words later, I have a book. The book's name is Love Letters. The book is inconsequential to this video. This video is about bookbinding, right? Why not get into bookbinding? So, quick backstory. Yeah, I wrote a book. Here it is. And it's bound. It's hardbound. Poorly. This was my first prototype of an actual book printed. This is my book printed. All 500 and, let's see here, 580 pages. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but the font's real big because I'm old and so are all my friends, and you can't read that little stuff that you used to read when you were in your 20s. So, why did I get into bookbinding? Real simple. First of all, I don't feel like paying somebody to bind my first book. I don't feel like, well, it's not a feel like, I refuse to do vanity press. So, I'm like, okay, and it's expensive. Not that, why spend $500 on something when you can spend $1,000 on it and do it yourself, right? Or, yeah. So, my first foray was to print the book out and put it in 3-ring binders and give it to people to read, because not for nothing, I can't get anybody to read the book. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they can't, because nobody likes to read on a computer or an iPad or whatever. I mean, people do. My sister-in-law does. But the overwhelming vast majority of my Gen X friends, that this book is written to focus towards, they like physical books. So I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos, shocking, right, on how to bind a book, and I did it. Well, the first thing I did was I went out and bought a printer. I went out and bought myself a laser printer, the cheapest one I possibly could, and an entire case of 3-ring punched binder paper. Well, I gave the first book to somebody to read, and the first thing they did was bitch that it was in a 3-ring binder. I did it this way because the font's huge, right? You can't miss it. It's a huge font. Nobody wants to read a 3-ring binder. It's just that simple. So I pushed this aside. I went in and I typeset the book in Pages, which is another problem all on its own, because Pages is Mac's word processing program. It doesn't translate well into Word and then back into Pages. The whole thing was just a bit of a mess. So this got canned. Yeah, just leave this here. So this got canned. I want to print a book. So, to repeat myself, I go online and I look up different ways to bind books. I didn't know anything about how books are bound, other than the ones that I had from when I was a kid all fell apart. Why did they fall apart? Well, they fell apart because they used perfect binding, which is hilarious because it's less than perfect. Basically, and I did it. It worked. Here it is. Now, this is one of the ones that I printed. This is not, well, this is a book, but it's not actually a fucking camera overheated. This is a book, but it's not actually a book. This is one of the 3-ring binders that had the book in it, and I cut it up. I folded all the pages, and I glued it all together, and it worked out awesome. I've been abusing the piss out of this thing, and I can't get it to fall apart. And I mean, like, really abusing it. Beyond, like, massive abuse by, like, physically ripping the pages out of it. But it worked. okay? So I used what's called perfect binding for this. I wasn't thinking when I did it, because this isn't a book. This is just this is just 500 pages of scrap paper that I folded up and glued together. Came out great. I'm going to set this one aside. So then I looked up thread binding, and I did it. I found a program that prints out what's called signatures, which are 4 or 8 pages. This one's 8 pages that are all folded together. I built myself I built myself a piercing cradle. Actually, I 3D printed a piercing cradle, actually 2, of course. Why not build 1 when you can build 2? I even printed up a piercer so I could put the signatures into this thing, punch the holes, sew the whole book together. Of course, that created a whole new problem, which was this. This is the book that I sewed together. Now, the problem with sewing a book like this together, well, there's a couple problems. One is I'm fucking cheap, right? So I used my 3-ring binder paper, as you can see from this hole here, right? I'm not throwing away a case of paper. I'm going to make this work. Well, 8.5 by 11 isn't really the greatest. Isn't really the greatest for book printing. You want to use A4, which is legal paper. But it works, and you can read the book. You can read it, which was the point. But the problem is it's super duper thick, and no matter how much I press it down, I can't get it any thinner. So I wanted to do a perfect binding, which is what this is. I also sewed this one together, but this one's signatures of 8 instead of signatures of 4. This was the very first one I sewed together. It came out pretty nice. It's just a soft cover that I literally just folded paper around. That was the other thing, is I bought 8.5 by 11 cardstock to make the pages or the covers out of, not realizing that when you fold, not taking into consideration the thickness of the spine. Oops. So, this is my first hardcover one, which is also, I think this one's sewn together. This one's also sewn together. The camera keeps shutting off. So this one's another one I did. This is a scrapbook. Let's see here. I think I sewed this one. Yeah, so this one's sewn together also. I used thread that was too heavy because that's the only binding thread that I could find. Again, the spine's too thick. I wanted to do a thinner spine. This is a scrap one, and this is one that I'm abusing, literally just like throwing it around, abusing it, just to see how well it holds up. And it's actually held up pretty well to my literal abuse. I'm just beating the piss out of this thing, everything I can, short of physically ripping the pages out. Turned out great. So, I'm a dimwit, and I got ahead of myself, because that's what I do. If one's good, 5's better. If efficiency is the name of my game, oh, I also got into the 3D printed some things in there, obviously, to do this with. So efficiency is the name of my game, right? And I wasn't thinking. So I loaded the 577 page epic journey of the wife, Dr. Karen and Jana, into a program called Bookbinder. And basically it prints up the signatures for you. So after I screwed up one of those because I had it flipped around and didn't print right, so I have plenty of spares, I came up with a new idea. perfect binding with a cloth backing. The other one's under the press. So my game plan here was to put a piece of cardstock in here and glue that to the hardcover book. Just like this, okay? Because this is what holds the book together. And it works. Except, I'm a fucking dimwit. And I got ahead of myself. Because that's what I do. I'm going to do this and I'm going to hate myself for it, but I'm going to do it anyway, so I'm going to pull one out of the middle here. What I did was I printed the signatures. I pressed them and I glued them together. Never taking into consideration that the signature is 4 pages. What happens to the other 3 pages that aren't glued? Yeah, they fall out. Thank God I was using 3-ring binder paper. So when you fold the 3-ring binder paper, you get this little hole you get this half folded hole. Thank baby Jesus, because I like baby Jesus better than hippie Jesus, that when I glued these together, the glue stuck in here and held this book together, because when I opened it for the first time, there you go, this is a little dope. The pages began to fall out of the book. And I'm going to very carefully push that back in. How am I going to fix that? Wow. I sat around, I got a saw out, I sawed the binding. I sawed the binding, and I went and glued it together. That didn't work. Because that's not what a sawed binding is for. A sawed binding is so you can sew the signatures together. Well, I don't want to sew the signatures together, especially since the book's already theoretically bound. So what did I do? What am I going to do? Well, it just so happens that Uncle Fezzi also has a pretty extensive woodworking shop here to go along with my metal shop and my 3D printer and my photo lab and my sewing shit and my watchmaking and every other bullshit project I've gotten into. So, what did I do? Well, I drilled. I'm going to do this one. It'll be the next part of the video. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill along the spine about a 3/16 of an inch in on the spine, and then I'm going to sew it together. I already did one and it worked. It's in the press though, so I'm not going to show that one, but I will show this one when it's done. So mark this line 3/16 of an inch in. I have a 1/16 inch drill bit in my drill press, and I'm going to drill through the spine and then sew it lengthways along the spine. And it's not the greatest way to do it, I know that. But what it will do is hold the pages in. These are prototypes. Eventually I'll have these printed. If I can get an agent, I'm going to have them printed. Otherwise, these will be one of like 6 original copies, and that'll be the end of it. So we're going to set the drill press up and drill it, and then I'll show what it looks like when it's all done. Okay, so here we are back again. I'm going to say probably not even really 20 minutes later. So what I did was I just drilled, let's see here, yeah. So what I did was I just drilled along the spine here. It's a little crooked because the book wiggled. I should build a jig for it, but I don't know if I'm going to do any more of these, so I got that one's a little bit close. And that one's actually kind of important. But it's filled in here. They're all bound in. They can't fall out. So that's how I fixed the problem. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a press. So the thread that I'm using is actually pretty thick, but what it is it's waxed. So you can press it and it'll flatten out, which is what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to press this. I've got multiple different vices here. As a matter of fact, one of the other jobs for today is to put this vise back into operation and use it as a book press. There's a reason book presses are horizontal, trust me. Especially after you drop one of these, after putting it between pressing blocks and you drop it. So there you go, Uncle Fezzy bookbinding part 1. And if anybody's interested, well, actually, the other thing too is, if I'm doing, I know this is wrong. I think it's wrong, but this is one of those improvise, adapt, and overcome kind of moments, and that's exactly what I did, and that's why I posted the video. It's, if somebody knows better, which there's all, it's the internet. Somebody always knows better. You know, feel free to tell me what I'm. Obviously, I know what I did wrong, but tell me why it's going to fail. That's the more, other than I did it, tell me why it's going to fail. All right. So next video will be maybe a finished book, and maybe a goofy Uncle Fezzy video where I dance around and tell people to buy my shitty book.